Rafael was born and raised in Holyoke, Massachusetts. There he remembers many good times, but also many hardships brought on by poverty, racism, and family loss. As he speaks to you today, he'll share about some of the challenges he's faced, including addiction, homelessness, a suicide attempt, and forced hospitalization. But he'll also tell you how he survived and his many successes, See, I told you I'd mess up. Including being a father to two smart and full-of-life girls. I can see the smile from here. And taking on the new role of Director of the Western Mass Recovery Learning Community's Empowering Individuals with Lived Experience project, centering on those whose voices have historically been marginalized, much like his own.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you for the invitation to be able to speak in front of you all today. My story starts in the mid-'80s. I was a child, as you said earlier, born and raised in Holyoke. But something happened, something tragic happened to me. I met with someone in my building, and I was forced to do something that I didn't want to do, and was traumatized there on out. I didn't know quite what to do with that. I was very young, about 7 years old at the time, and didn't know how to handle it. But I did know that I didn't want anyone to know of it. So I repressed that trauma that I had. Going forward in life, although people looked at me and it seemed like I was very popular, outgoing, I was doing something to myself. I was connecting with food. I was eating my sorrows away. The more and more food I ate, the more weight I gained. So much weight. At the height of my weight, I weighed 620 pounds. I'm fast forwarding here. I'm about 22 years old. Throughout those years in high school, like I said earlier, I was pretty popular. People know me. But I can tell you right now, I didn't know anyone. And it was such a lonely place to be. But I had food that I was connecting with, and that's what helped me. That's what made me feel okay, right? Here I am at 23 years old, and I have to, at the height of my weight, 620 pounds, I really couldn't work anymore. I worked in retail and food, and I really couldn't do it anymore. And I had to make a choice. I sought some help. I went to a doctor. They told me, there is this bariatric surgery you can do. It would, and I really think there's 3 reasons why you should think about this surgery. He said, 1, you're 23. 2, you're 23. And 3, you're 23. And he pretty much told me that I can't guarantee that you'll live past 35. That's a common theme. I was told ever since I was a young kid that our family was kind of cursed, the men in our family. So I had a lot of that baggage already in me. And so I decided reluctantly to go through the surgery, even though they told me it was like 1 in 100 chance that I could pass away. I go forward and I make this choice, and right before my surgery, my brother dies, tragically saving his girlfriend out of a canal in Holyoke. 2 months later, my uncle got shot trying to stop a fight in South Holyoke. About 7 months later after that, my sister passed away from breast cancer after cancer came back. My uncle was very dear to my father, and a couple of months after my sister passed away, my father woke up, and he was no longer. I mean, he never woke up. He was no longer. I got that phone call. So something happened within my life, dealing with the trauma that I had, not really dealing with it. I was repressing it. I was, you know, I couldn't hold that anymore. By this time, I had already had the surgery. So my coping mechanism, the thing I ran to receive support from, the thing that understood me was no longer available to me because it would make me physically sick. By this time, I really didn't trust the mental health system because I didn't want them prying out of me what I was holding so dear to me. I didn't want people to know what was going on with me. But I made a choice. I made a choice to do something. I went on with the surgery. I didn't have the food there, and so what came next was alcohol. I found something, but for me to be able to continue drinking alcohol, I had to find something else, another illicit substance, and cocaine. And then from there, I had to be able to sleep, so there was another illicit substance that would help me do that, and that was heroin. And for years, I was trapped in this cycle I put myself into because this trauma that I was holding was so hard for me to bear. Right? I tried, I was in and out of psychiatric services or going to see a therapist, which I had very bad experiences in the beginning because people just didn't want, I thought I could just be able to talk and say what I needed to say, and that was it, and I would release it. But it came out jumbled and saying, you know, instead of saying what I wanted to say, it came out, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want this for myself. And I was forced into a hospital where, I guess they meant well, but it wasn't what I needed at the time. I just wanted to be heard. Going on, I still was struggling with substances for quite a while. And it wasn't until about 2009 when I received notice that I was in a relationship at the time, and my first daughter was conceived, and I had to make some choices. I knew I wanted to be there for my kids. I didn't want to make my father right, saying we wouldn't live past our 40s, right? I wanted to be there for my child like my father wasn't there for me, you know? So I made a choice to seek treatment and really give it a shot and really try to figure out why all this stuff made me kind of like shut off the switch on my life. I wanted to figure that out. So at that time I entered I called mental health services at BHN at the time, and they have a place called Sloan Clinic. I entered into a place called the Opportunity House in Springfield, which was great. I spent 9 months there, and there I was my first welcoming to what people know as peer support, right? I was there with peers, with 46 individuals that had commonality with me, had struggles just like me, had struggled with substances just like me. And what I realized is that I wasn't alone, right? But going out to the Sloan Clinic and meeting a therapist, which I was very hesitant about, but being able to find out that this therapist had some life experience like my own and was able to share a little bit, not much, but was able to share just enough to make me feel comfortable, to make it worthwhile for me to move forward and figure out what made me shut off that switch on my life. So after some long, hard work and some real insight, I said to her, you know, I'm not saying no to medicine or anything like that. I just want to be able to talk about things. I'll give it a year And if after a year I can't figure anything out, then maybe I'll give that medicine a shot. But after the year came almost, and I made some major strides in figuring out what caused me to be in that place where I was at. But I didn't quite complete that work. You know, that was the onset of Obamacare, and my therapist was really scared that she wasn't able to continue providing services where she was at. And she went into early retirement, but she was very dear to me and very special to me, and I hold her dear and close to my heart today because she helped me move through some stuff. So here I am at this time, kind of in like suspension, trying to figure out where I'm at. After years of homelessness, now I'm on my mom's couch, helping raise my daughter. No place of my own, but I was kind of like stuck. I was content not doing any drugs or drinking any alcohol. I was just content to just be there. And, you know, just like the first time where I had to make some decisions in the same relationship I revisited, I conceived another child. And then my mind started saying, wait a minute, what are you doing? You can't just raise 2 children on a couch. So I started looking for work, and my fallback was cooking, because by trade that's what I did for a lot of years, and I knew I could always have that, but there was something that I didn't want to go back to because it just led me and reminded me of situations that I've done in the past, and it just wasn't healthy enough for me. I didn't know if I could maintain that. So I'm looking through ads, and I run across Indeed, and I see a particular ad that I found weird, but it spoke to me. And it says, have you been through some trauma? And I'm like, what is this? And I read further. It was a very short ad, didn't have much to it, just an offering of what hours were available, which weren't much, 9. But for me, not working for over 4 years, 9 hours was more than enough for me at that time. And so I entered into an interview, and that place I interviewed at was Western Mass Recovery Learning Community. And I sat in an interview with someone, Earl, that now works for DMH. And something happened in that interview where they asked me a question. They asked me to look at a sentence. And they said, what do you think about this sentence? And I said, whoa, I don't like it. We shouldn't talk about people with mental illness that way. And something clicked in me. I didn't quite know what I was interviewing for at that time. But whatever it was, I knew I wanted in because they made me feel welcome. They brought something out of me in that interview that I didn't know was in there. And so I continued my process, and I got called back, and I started work. And I still didn't quite know what I was doing there. But I knew it was providing support for people. It took me a while to figure out that my job wasn't to instantly jump in and help people. It was there to be able to listen, to be present in their pain, laughter, or anything they wanted to talk about. And I started realizing for myself, it was just as therapeutic for me as it was for them. Being able to speak of my experiences and share what I was going through or what I had gone through was what kept me relevant and present in the moment, right? I started realizing, first I want to say I was never able to say to anyone that I was sexually assaulted and stuff. I started working at the RLC because I found the strength between everything I was going through. I found my power, I found my strength, and that was my voice. I was able to share of my experiences. So things that I was never able to share before, I was now able to share. So I worked for a couple years with them. I was still receiving Social Security disability benefits. And then I started having to ask myself, opportunities would arise, and I was just not quite there yet, right? Like, hey, we got this opening over here. I encourage you to apply. And I'm like, no, I'm good with the 9 hours. I'm good. But the more and more opportunities arose, the more and more yearning of my learning was arising, right? Like I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be more of a part of. And I really, really appreciated the approach that we had. I saw the importance, and I saw that my voice was important within that movement. And so the longer and longer I was there, now I've been with the RLC for about 3.5 years. I was hired in December of 2016. After a while, I took on a position as a community sports coordinator for our building called Rainville, which I'm still actually at. And like the commissioner mentioned, Judy mentioned earlier, that I'm newly appointed director for empowering individuals with lived experience. I guess my message is, if we can learn to stay present with folks and learn to listen to what there is actually going on with them, not rush to judgment, but enter a conversation with some curiosity, see what's happening for that person, it's amazing what can come out of some of those conversations. Sometimes it takes longer than others. Sometimes it's instant. But just being involved in that is what helped me. I have seen the benefits of being able to sit with people and how it has helped them. And so I want to thank you again for allowing me to be here and share my experiences. And thank you. Thank you.